We're back again. One more round. Actually, one more race for round number 1 in the NASCAR 2024 playoffs. Bristol night race. That's awesome. It's one of the best races of the year, and we can't wait. So that's going to be this Saturday. Hopefully the weather will be nice. It's actually been raining. We got this, that system that came up from the East Coast that is putting some rain in our area, including Bristol. But that's only going to be for the next couple of days. So hopefully we'll have good weather, because what we don't want is a Saturday night Bristol race postponed until Sunday afternoon.
That is the absolute worst you could possibly imagine, and it's happened more times than I can count, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, check the weather while we're at it, see what the deal is. But we're here to preview the race coming up on Saturday night at Bristol. We're going to go over the odds. We're going to go over, of course, our top selections. Then a little bit later on, if you're an F1 fan, we're going to update what's going on in the F1 playoffs, even though they've got a long way to go there as well. What happened last week and what's coming up this week in Singapore. So that's what's on par for us here today. And taking a look at the forecast, it looks like Saturday night should be fine. No rain in the forecast the rest of the week. Once you get past the rain tonight in my area, and it's usually the same for Bristol. So that's good news. All right. So first, let's talk about what happened last week. A lot to kind of break down here, because of the fact that on one hand, it was a really it was an exciting type of race, because you didn't know what the hell was going to go on from lap to lap, especially with those restarts. And early on, it started so soon. And just like last week, Larson getting in trouble. This week, Blaney gets in trouble. Hamlin in trouble. Byron gets in trouble later. I mean, it was just crazy. And then at the end, Chris Buescher made a fan out of me for life after what he did to Van Gisbergen, because we've talked about this 2 years ago in the Chicago race, or last year in the Chicago race, that this is exactly what Justin Haley should have done to Van Gisbergen. He should have played tough, and he didn't, and it cost him the race. Chris Buescher, he played tough, and look, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with Van Gisbergen, because he's if he was in the series and had a really good car, I might even be a fan, because he's very aggressive. He doesn't take no shit, especially for a driver that's basically part-time. And you can even see when Buescher looked like he had him, he came right back. He knew he was he was in big trouble, but he was not going to let Buescher make it easy on him. But Buescher had him, and he finished him off. And I thought that was awesome, even though he's not a playoff driver. Neither one of them are. So there was a lot to like there. On the other hand, there's a part of me that's like, well, this is really just fucking weird. I mean, this whole race, all this craziness going on. I mean, qualifying was a mess. It just didn't make any sense. And then the race really didn't make any sense. I mean, I'm looking at most of this race, I'm like, who would pick these drivers besides Van Gisbergen? Who would pick these guys? That most of the drivers that were still up there in the top 10 the last half of the race. So it was just a very weird couple of days at Watkins Glen. But I completely understand if you loved what you saw and thought it was a very, very exciting race.
Yeah, I thought it was a good race, but just looking at the finishing order, you're scratching your head. It's weird for a playoff race, certainly. You've got a non-playoff driver that won. You've got a part-time driver that finished second. Third was Carson Hocevar. Zane Smith finished in the top 5. Corey LaJoie finished in the top 10. Ryan Prix finished in the top 10. The highest finishing playoff drivers were Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric, and they were the only two that finished inside the top 10. It was like that first lap crash, the weird qualifying, like you said, just set up this really weird kind of race where you had a whole bunch of really good cars that were trying to come from the back and probably ended up just getting caught up in that first lap crash and then having problems throughout, because there were plenty of cautions throughout and everybody ended up having some kind of trouble here or there. But those late restarts on a road course with the strategy, the way that it plays out, and the ability to, Hocevar in particular, like he played the strategy perfectly. They made the call to stay out, kept him on old tires. He was able to make ground, or at least not lose ground on the old tires. And then when the next caution came, he got right back on cycle and was able to maintain his track position. And that's why he finished third. It was just a brilliantly called race for that team. I think Shane Van Gisbergen, when he comes to series full time next season, he's going to be a monster. We knew that from last year after Chicago as well. But Chris Buescher, he's been close a couple of times on the road courses. So I agree. I think it was tremendous that he took advantage of the opportunity that he had. I think if it was his first time being up there potentially for the win on a road course, I don't think we get the same kind of aggression. But being that he finished second at least once before in a road course and probably should have won, he wasn't going to let this one get away, and you could see that. It was a really cool last lap.
So when Van Gisbergen goes full time, how does that work next year? Is that still with Colleague, right?
As far as, yes, it will still be with Colleague. So he'll come up, and obviously banking on exactly like he did with Xfinity. He, after shocking everybody with the win, not shocking, but shocking, I guess. Everybody with the impressing everyone, that's the word I'm looking for, with the win last year at Chicago. It was pretty much near certainty that if he wanted to come to the season, that there'd be a spot for him. So this year came over to Xfinity. He's won a handful of road course races, exceptional in the playoffs, exceptional performance, and is in the playoffs as a result of that. So banking on the same thing next year after the Xfinity experience. Very different cars, but certainly his ability to shine through on these ones as well. So I think he's going to be, I know he's going to be one to beat on the road courses all next year when he's in the car full time.
And then we'll find out, just exactly whether or not he has the talent to be more than just that road course driver, yep. Because that's just not going to do anything for his career. It'd be nice, but it's just not going to do anything that will make him, anything special. So, but I can't imagine if that he does. I mean, he appears to be the type of driver that has the goods. So we'll see what happens. Again, it is Colleague, so we got to keep that in mind. But we'll see what happens.
And he's had some pretty good races on restrictor plates too. So in the draft, maybe he starts the full-time Cup Series kind of like an Austin Cindric, where we knew Cindric has got the road course skills and he's also got the super speedway skills. I think Van Gisbergen is showing both of those. So I think the first place he's going to get it certainly are the Daytona, Talladega, and Atlantas of the world. And then we'll see what he's able to do at a place like Bristol or maybe a Martinsville or something like that as we go along. Should be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and Carson Hocevar, by the way, Hocevar and Berry, they're the top two rookies, right?
Yes.
And is he definitely going to, who do you think? Because I know Berry seems to, even though Hocevar, I believe, has got more points than Berry. But a lot of this has come because Berry's really tailed off lately, and Hocevar has actually gotten better at the right time. I mean, no way you would have thought this would have been a race for the Rookie of the Year about 2 months ago.
Yeah, and Hocevar is sitting at 22nd in the points, 526 total points. Josh Berry down in 24th, 481. Like you said, Hocevar, his past 5 races have just been really good. I think 3 out of the last 5 have been finishes of 11th or better, and 4 out of the last 5 are 16th or better. Somebody can check me on the stats exactly, but that's what I've got in my memory. Very recently, Hocevar has started figuring things out and is getting those good results. So I think there's a lot more yet to come from Hocevar. But as far as next year, Berry's ride's locked up with Joe Gibbs Racing and Martin Truex Jr.'s vacant seat.
Let's talk about Bristol. So, Bristol Motor Speedway, Saturday night, and let's pop up the odds for the race. And there you go. We got, let me see if I can actually make this a little bit. Where is this? So it's already kind of, that's better. Do I go for it a little bit bigger? Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So really, you got these three: Hamlin, Larson, and Bell as the top three, and that really is no surprise. They should be the top three, but I don't know. I get the feeling that if Kyle Larson had Denny Hamlin's stats, that he'd probably be 3-1, maybe even 250, because Denny Hamlin is the favorite and should be the favorite. It just shouldn't even be a discussion, even though Larson has been strong, and we'll get into his stats in just a minute. But look, we're going to be talking about Richmond, Martinsville, Bristol. Those are the three shorts. And then we also have Dover as the concrete. And Denny Hamlin has wins at Bristol, Richmond, Dover. So he's got 3 wins out of the 4 tracks. 1 here, 1 very convincingly. He led 163, and he was by far the best car earlier this year. So he's got all of that. And yet he's only a point better than Larson and Bell. I'm just guessing that that's because first of all, he's not hot right now. Second of all, he's just not Kyle Larson. And that's like Las Vegas's boy. So if again, I just think Larson would be a lot higher up here or lower up here, depending on your point of view. Even though, keeping in mind, Larson, in all 4 races this year, 2 runner-ups, a 3rd and a 5th out of those tracks. That's very strong, but still no wins. That's because Denny was winning them all. And then Larson only has 1 win at this track, but he has 9 top 10s in his last 10, 6 of those top 5s, 3 of those runner-ups. The win was in 2021, and he led at least 17 laps in all 9 of those races where he's a top 10 or more, 17 or more laps minimum. So, yeah, that's why I can understand a little bit why the odds are the way they are, because but Denny is just clearly the favorite and should be. And by the way, I just don't think Bell should be next to these 2 guys. I think Bell should be maybe 6, maybe 7. Forget Gibbs. We'll get into him in a minute. But I just think it should be Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson kind of on a stratosphere by themselves.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, look back to the beginning of this season, and the short tracks were where Denny Hamlin was dominating. And yeah, Kyle Larson was good, but Hamlin dominated and won all of those races. He's won the last 2 on the concrete at Bristol last fall, and then this spring again. Both of those, he led more than 140 laps. So that's just terribly impressive. But then when you look at Larson, clearly should be the second favorite. He's finished 6th or better in the last 5 concrete races here at Bristol, excluding obviously the dirt ones for all these conversations. And he's led laps in every single one of those. And it's not just 1 lap, it's been like 20 plus laps each time. So not the domination of Hamlin, but Larson is very good here. Both of them, based on the Watkins Glen results, need something good to come out of this week. Hamlin especially, he's sitting 13th in points behind Gibbs. It's only a 6-point gap to safety and being able to advance. But you got to believe at a place like Bristol that Denny Hamlin's going to come through and not just advance, but likely do it in style, potentially with a win.
Yeah, let's take a look at those standings. So there you go. Logano, of course, is moving on. And then you've got Bell, Cindric, Bowman. They're all in good shape. So is Suarez, Reddick, Elliott, Blaney, Larson, and Byron. So it looks like it's going to come down to, you got Briscoe and Gibbs. They're on the bubble, pretty much. And then moving on over, can you believe Denny Hamlin is sitting there on the outside, where if something were to happen, it's a short track, if something were to happen, I mean, if anything were to happen to Denny Hamlin in this race to knock him out for any reason, then you just know. I mean, it's just, because it shouldn't happen. So you just know that it's just luck involved there, and none of the good kind. And then you got Keselowski. Look, we all know Burton's done. So you've got Hamlin, Keselowski, Truex is probably done as well. So yeah, one of these 2 drivers, Keselowski and Hamlin, may not make it, even though that's not a lot of points differential between Briscoe, Gibbs, Hamlin, and Keselowski, especially Hamlin and the other 2. It's not that much, only 12 points difference. But do you think Keselowski, like, what happens if he does not win? If let's say he finishes in the top 5, what do you? And let's say let's say he picks up some stage points. What are his chances? What does he need to happen? Because Gibbs has been pretty strong. We'll get into him in a minute. Briscoe, it could happen either way. But what does he have to do if he doesn't win the race?
Well, the tight you said it. The points battle is extremely tight. So if you look at say Keselowski there, 14th at 2,037 points, you're within 40 points all the way up to Chase Elliott in 7th. So if Keselowski has a good day, gets stage points, finishes in the top 5 in the race, all he needs is one of those 12. Probably from, well, let's call it Blaney on back. So say Blaney down to Gibbs. He needs one of those 4 guys to have a bad day and exit early, not get stage points and finish, in the 30s or a DNF. And if that happens, Keselowski goes through if he's getting stage points in the top 5 for sure. It's a very tight points battle.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm trying to think back to past years. Number one, how many times have we seen Denny Hamlin below the cut line? Almost never. But then on top of that, you got 6 points separating Gibbs and Hamlin from and Briscoe right on the bubble there. And those are 3 drivers that you would think, prior to the start of this would have been advancing. But you've got Austin Cindric now sitting up there in 3rd.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. And Alex Bowman, like we said, last week, he could potentially sneak something out. He's up there in 4th, looking pretty comfortable too.
Yeah, look at that. Larson 9th, Byron 10th, Blaney 8th. I mean, it's crazy. It's just but this is the system, and this is actually why there are definitely 2 points of view. One is you got the purists who just hate it. And then it's just the way that it is. It's just the times. It's all you can say. See, I think there are other sports that do screw things up a little bit more. So I think it could be worse. Yeah, but I think it actually is. I think it can be worse. Is my point. Is that it just can.
It's true. That's true. Sadly, but that is true. Yes.
Yeah. So at least it's set up that if you got to race well. I don't know what else to say. And if you have 2 or 3 bad races in a row at the wrong time of year, well, I don't know. It's that's the way it is. So it's not like you're getting screwed over anything. If you're a driver like Denny Hamlin and you get knocked out of this round, that means that you didn't perform well at all for almost a month. Well, it's playoff time. If you can't perform well at playoff time, why should we be pointing fingers at the system? I mean, so
yeah, it's a good point of view.
So and look, Larson's in the same boat. Mm-hmm. If something would happen to Larson early on Saturday night or any of these guys, so yeah. All right, let's get out of that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the odds again. All right, so as far as Bell and then Gibbs even. So Bell, look, he's never won here, and I think he did have a win in Xfinity and a runner-up. So he came into the Cup feeling good about the track, and he has 3 good runs since the next gen, 4th, 3rd, and 10th, and he led 187 laps from the pole last year, 4th 2 years ago, leading 143 laps. This year, though, out of the 4 races, he does not have a top 5. And you want me to put him with the same odds as Larson and Hamlin, and I just can't do that. And that's why that's the thing that bothers me the most about Bell is not the fact that I don't think he could win. It's just I just don't think his odds should be next to Larson and Hamlin's.
Yeah, 4 top 10s out of 6 tries. Twice he's led more than 100 laps at Bristol. So he's certainly fast, but he doesn't have the history of a Hamlin winning multiple races. And I agree, there's not a big enough discount. Even Gibbs, I mean, I was thinking about Gibbs on Sunday during the race. He's in one of the best cars in the series. He's now almost done with his 2nd full-time season, and he has yet to win a race.
Yeah.
Like, why on earth should he be below Brad Keselowski, who's got, and throw the car out of the question because obviously the Gibbs car is a better car. But Keselowski's won at Bristol 3 times. Shouldn't they be a little bit more close together? I mean, you're getting 3 points from almost 4 from Gibbs to Keselowski, somebody who's won 3 times, and then even Busher won last week, and we know it's really tough to win back to back. But the last person that won at Bristol on the concrete, besides before Denny Hamlin, was Chris Buescher. So Gibbs has yet to win a race in this series, and you're talking about one of the hardest tracks to potentially win at, place that almost anything can go wrong. And yeah, he's been good at it, but he still hasn't won. So both of those guys, I would need a bigger discount to be able to go with either one of them.
Yeah, I think Gibbs should be like 15-1, double, 8-1. No way. Again, look at the other tracks. 16th Richmond, 19th Martinsville, 10th Dover, 9th here. He doesn't even have a top 5 at any of these tracks this year. Yeah, he's led laps, but come on. I mean, that's why it's a tough track. You got to do more than just lead laps early in the race. It's a longer race at a harder concrete track that it's more than just getting off to good starts. So yeah, it's mind-boggling. Keep in mind, he did not win an Xfinity Series at this track either, even though he had a couple of good runs, but no wins ever at this track.
That's a really important point because he won a lot of Xfinity races, obviously much more successful there than in Cup Series so far. And not to say he's not going to win, so don't come out hating me or anything. But yeah, if he didn't get the job done at this track in Xfinity, and like you said, no top 5s on those comparable tracks so far this season, absolutely no reason that he should be 8-1.
Yeah, and look, I thought he was going to have a really good year. I thought he was definitely going to win. I mean, he may still this year.
I thought so too.
Yeah,
I thought so as well.
Hasn't worked out so far. All right, so then, like you said, you got the partners here. Keselowski and Buescher next. So yeah, Buescher won on Sunday, so I'm wiping him out this week, even though 7th, 4th, and 1st since the next gen. So he really has taken to the next gen at Bristol. Keselowski, meanwhile, has gotten better in each of his next gen. He went from leading 109 laps a couple of years ago, finishing 13th, and 8th last year, 3rd in March. He does have an 8th at Richmond this year, and the 3rd at Bristol in March. And like you said, he's got the 3 wins. And, he definitely wants to win this race. So I really like him, actually, because of that. And then you've got Byron, Blaney, and Logano at 15-1. I don't think Blaney Blaney and Logano, I'm not so sure that they should be here. Maybe they're 15-1 because they're in the playoffs and they're skilled drivers and they've had some success here. Logano's got a couple of wins, but Blaney has not had the success he's had since the next gen. He actually won a race in the Xfinity Series here. He had some decent runs here, but then since the next gen, he's had a couple of moments in the 3 races, but not enough. And so that worries me a little bit. But he was 5th at Martinsville, 7th at Dover. Logano was 2nd at Richmond and 6th at Martinsville. And Byron, meanwhile, he won at Martinsville. But, and this is a big but, I don't know if I'd have him at 15-1 either. Him and Blaney, I might put at more like 18-1 because I think there should be some consideration in the fact that Byron's raced here 10 times in the Cup Series and never led a lap.
That is a fantastic point. Certainly out of the bunch from the 11 to 15 crew, I'm taking Brad Keselowski and William Byron, but I would definitely put Keselowski ahead of him because Keselowski's got the demonstrated success. He was really good here in the spring. Plus, I think Keselowski is in a more do or die situation in the playoffs. And like you said, he really wants to win. Byron, though, his best finish is 3rd, which he did twice, 2021 fall race and then the spring race, or I guess the fall race in 2022, because the spring race was on the dirt then. But yeah, like you said, never led a lap and average finish of 17.4, which isn't horrible. But yeah, you should be getting a little bit more of a discount. Despite that, Keselowski and Byron would be my choices out of this bunch.
Yeah, I think these odds are the way they are because they're bona fide playoff drivers and Blaney's a champ, and Logano's a champ, and Byron is maybe close to being a champ, so they're getting some respect with the odds there. Okay, then you've got Truex. You got this next group here. And I do think there are a couple of bargains here now, because there are a few drivers that we felt that the odds were a little bit short. Now we're getting a little bit of some breaks here. And we're going to start with Kyle Busch, because again, and look, he was screwed up like the other guys on Sunday pretty quickly. So it was, I don't think that should impact his momentum, or at least it shouldn't. So you take a look though, and I know the biggest issue for me is definitely the fact that since the switch to the next gen, he has not fared well here. Matter of fact, he's only led 5 laps in his last 4 appearances here for a driver that has led close to 2,600 laps in his career. So that worries me a little bit. But I just like the fact that, again, they're racing better, which means maybe they fixed a whole bunch of things and he's just more comfortable in the car now. Both the fact that he's driving a new Chevy and the fact that he's it's the next gen. So who knows? Maybe that's just everything now is about to change. We don't know, but it could, and that's why I'm willing to take the chance at 17-1 for a driver that has 8 wins at the track, and did have a 4th place finish at Dover, another concrete track. So I like the 17-1 for a driver that's been racing the hottest of his season at 17-1. And then the other bargain to me, matter of fact, I think it's a major bargain. I even think it's better than Kyle, is Chase Elliott. I don't have any idea what Chase Elliott's doing at 18-1, but I'll take it because Elliott is on his best 3-race stretch at Bristol in his career have come with the next gen. 8th, 7th, and 2nd. And if you look at it, his racing this year on these tracks, 8th, of course, in March here, 5th at Richmond, 3rd at Martinsville, 5th at Dover. So this has been as good a track series for Chase Elliott as any this season. And so the only thing that I would be a little bit concerned with, but hey, I'm getting 18-1, so not much, is the fact that even though he's done really well in these last 3 races with the next gen, he's only led 5 laps. But hey, I'm getting 18-1. I'm not going to complain about it. He also, by the way, has a 6.6 average in 5 Xfinity Series races. So this is just a good track for Chase, even though he's never won, ever, at Bristol. But you're getting 18-1 for that, and I'll take it.
Yeah, you got to throw Truex out. Just
yeah, that's why I didn't even talk about him. Yeah,
I don't know at this point what could go right for that guy. Unfortunately, and quite honestly, he's never won at Bristol anyway. So yeah, he led 54 laps and finished 2nd in the spring. But
that was a different Martin Truex Jr.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. So I completely agree with you. I think the 2 values here are Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott. I think the even better news about Kyle Busch is that you remember back into the spring race, we had all those tire issues. So for some reason, the Goodyear tire, failures galore, everybody had to pit. I think Goodyear actually ended up issuing all the teams an additional set because so many were failing. And it was like a nonstop caution fest that whoever was able to manage their tires the best through 20 laps or whatever it was before they started blowing up was going to get the win, and that was Denny Hamlin. And I think Truex benefited from that. Like you said, Truex different driver then than he is now, certainly, but same rubber coming back, same surface, more experience, better understanding his car, racing better, good organization that can take advantage of the knowledge. Kyle Busch ticks all of those boxes, and he's been spectacular at Bristol. So I think Kyle Busch doesn't get bit by the same issues that he experienced in the spring. He ends up having a significantly better race, potentially even in contention for the win. And I think the same thing is true from Chase Elliott perspective. Even with all of the issues, Elliott started 5th and finished 8th and led 5 laps in the spring. So he's already got it down. he's like a top 10 machine at this track. He better be in your fantasy rosters. If not, he's a great value on the play for the win as well, though. But certainly of this bunch, Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott, and quite honestly, both of those guys probably the best on the board so far.
I like it. All right. And as far as the others, by the way, Reddick does have a 6.0 average in 5 Xfinity Series races with a runner-up and a win, but he just has one top 5 in the Cup Series and led only 4 laps in 6 races, and he hasn't fared that well with the next gen either. And then Berry, he actually was a pretty good 12th this year because he started second and led 25 laps. Briscoe, meanwhile, as we move on here, he'll start the next group at 35-1. He had a lot of success in Xfinity Series here. He's got a couple of runner-ups. He's got a win. Not a lot of laps led, but results were good. Hasn't been able to show that in the Cup yet, but only 4 races, and 2 of them were top 15s. And this is just not a track. Again, another reason about Gibbs. Gibbs is a perfect example why we're not jumping all over him, is that you need experience here. And that helps a whole lot. And Briscoe, he's at least had some. And the difference is between him and Gibbs is you get an 8-1 with Gibbs and 35-1 with Briscoe. So that's why I'm a lot more apt to say, yeah, you know what, maybe I'll throw a little long shot money on Chase Briscoe. So I think he's got a shot as a long shot. Obviously not a top pick, but out of this group, I would say Briscoe would be at my top, and Bowman would be interesting because he was 4th this year and also had 2 top 10s at Martinsville and Dover, has 3 top 5s in his career at Bristol. So, but the big thing is you're getting 45-1. So I'm willing to go Briscoe 1, Bowman 2, and maybe even McDowell 3.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I think Chase Briscoe is certainly riding a high. He's in good position to be able to advance in the playoffs as well. So if he just comes out and has a solid night, that's really all he needs. So the pressure is off. And then look at how he got into the playoffs. It was another track where he was really good in the Xfinity Series. So I think that confidence is building within him, and he can go forward. Chastain, unfortunately, this is one of those tracks where Chastain just historically has not performed well at. So there's very little hope that he's going to magically turn things around this weekend. So you can pass over him. Alex Bowman, interesting. He's been up and down, but like you said, he's got the 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. He finished, one of those top 5s was obviously in the spring when he led 3 laps, and he came from 29th to be able to do that. So again, similar story to Elliott, same tire, same surface, knowledge of the issues from the spring. I think Bowman could potentially do even better this week. So I think Bowman is a logical, good choice. Wallace, I think he's only got 1 top 10 here, if I'm not mistaken. And then McDowell's actually been pretty good here on occasion as well. So I think of the 3, Briscoe, Bowman, and McDowell, and I'd probably put them in that same order.
Yeah, Chastain. I mean, it was funny that Chastain and Truex were at the front last week, because those are the 2 drivers where you went, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, at first it doesn't matter. They're not going to win this race. It's just there's no way.
Yep.
And so if they're not going to win in that situation, why would you think they're going to win a race this year? So, but by the way, McDowell, he had an average of 27.2 in 25 career races at Bristol. That's pretty bad. But his next gen results, his average is 9.3.
He's finished 11th or better in 4 of the last 5 Bristol races. Yes, McDowell knows what he's doing at this track, and yes, McDowell can be in the top 10, and you never know what can happen. Look at the spring race, and it is Bristol, so anything can happen, and we know McDowell can sneak race wins as well.
All right, let's move on to the rest of the group. Hunter Nemechek was 3rd last year in the Xfinity Series. That's about it for him at this track. No way. He's too young, too inexperienced. And then the rest of this group, just taking a look at the odds, I'd probably say the ones that would stick out for me. Gregson, of course, has 2 Xfinity Series wins, so keep that in mind. Jones also has 2 Xfinity Series wins. Dillon's got 1 Xfinity Series win, but he's never led a lap in 18 Cup races. Cindric has not fared well. Suarez hasn't fared well that much as either, and they're both, of course, playoff drivers. So, yeah, none of these guys really interest me, except if you're thinking about a top 10 fantasy, I don't know, maybe you'd want to look at a Jones or a Gregson based on their experience of winning here in the Xfinity Series. But other than that, I just don't see much.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Gregson would have been the one that I would have put out just because I think he suffered from the issues of the spring, ended up finishing 34th. Didn't really qualify well either, though, 22nd. So it remains to be seen if his Xfinity experience and success is able to translate to the Cup Series here. I think it could. The question is just whether or not it'll happen this weekend. But of that bunch, Gregson probably would be the one I'd throw my hat to. I wouldn't disagree if you went for Jones, though, either.
All right. Now, as far as some track trends to keep an eye on, and it's important because it's Bristol. 6 of the 7 winners here started in the top 5. So, yes, qualifying is going to be very important here. The winner out of that group that did not start in the top 5 was Chris Buescher. He started 20th. And speaking of that 20th mark, if you think about it, since 2005, only one winner has started outside the top 20, and that was Kevin Harvick, starting 24th in 2016. So if you want like a line to draw after qualifying where you just go, no, I don't care who it is, not taking them, then it's the top 20. Anybody 20 under, give them a shot if you want. Anybody 21st and over, forget it. And then you've got the last 22 winners. 14 of them have started in the top 5 with 5 pole sitters. As far as the makes, well, Chevy's been pretty good lately, but not here. Just 1 win in the last 11, but that was Kyle Larson in 2021. In that same stretch, Toyota has 6 wins, Ford has 4. So there you go. It's saying this is the week to favor Toyota and Ford. Chevy, you're always going to give Chevy a look with the Larson and an Elliott and a Byron and a Bowman, but just keep an eye on the fact that they've only won once in the last 11. That's all. All right. Let's take a look at the futures because again, this is cutoff time. So some of these drivers are going to be eliminated. Let's see how they're breaking this up. So they still have Denny Hamlin at 5-1. How insane is that? Who would put money on Denny Hamlin? Now, look, I know he's a big favorite this week, but that'd be crazy. If you don't already have Denny Hamlin, this is not the week to put money on Denny Hamlin. Wait till next week.
You missed the boat. Yeah.
Let's see. Who else? Blaney's 6-1 now. Byron's still getting a decent number at 8. Logano's still getting a good number at 12. And you're still getting good long shot money from Bowman. This would probably be the one that I would do. You got Keselowski at 40-1, and if he could sneak his way in to the next round, then that's a really good that's a good spot to be in. So, how about you? What are you thinking about these futures here?
I'm surprised that somebody like a Briscoe, who's really heated up the past couple of weeks, is 100-1 next.
Put a buck on him.
Exactly right. Like, he's racing better now than probably ever in his entire career. Why not go for that at 100-1? But yeah, if you're right, of the certainly the big long shots, Keselowski would be the one that I would look at. Denny Hamlin, I don't know who's putting money on him right now at 5-1.
I have no idea.
Maybe only if you haven't put anything onto him at this point, and if he wins, he's going to be 3-1. Is he going to be equal to Kyle Larson again at that point? 4-1? Do they both go, or do they both move to 3-1 and Bell stays at 4? I don't know.
I mean, even Larson, the fact that he's 4-1, that he has one slip up on Saturday night, he could be eliminated. Why?
Absolutely.
Look. If you're going to take these guys, even if you lose a little bit, you're not going to lose a lot. Larson or Hamlin, they're not going to go from 4 to 5-1 to 2-1 after this race. And if it happens, then just tell Vegas to keep their money. But I don't think that's going to happen. So, yeah, just wait till next week. Just make sure that they get through this round. So
agreed.
And I'm willing to lose a point over it. Okay. let's get picks. So who are you going to go with?
Top pick.
Are you going to go with the short money, or are you going to go with the bargains only? What are you going to do?
I'm actually going to put Byron as a top choice.
Wow.
And
how about that?
Then
Mystery's never led a lap in the Cup Series is going to go out and win a race. But hey, he's got experience now, so it only has to happen once.
And he's been so good in the past few years in the playoffs. It's got to connect with him at some point, and that's kind of why I'm thinking Byron. If not this week, certainly next week.
Hey, you're getting 15-1.
Yeah, exactly right. And then I think further on down, how could I say no to Kyle Busch? Jeez, that's a no-brainer.
And then your long shot.
And then from a long shot, let's Briscoe. I'll put it right there. He was a long shot, right?
Yep, 35-1.
There you go.
All right. Yeah, you know what? I'll let me go ahead and take Keselowski then, Elliott, and my last one. Let's see. I'm gonna throw someone in there or not. I tell you what. Let's go ahead and roll the dice with Bowman as my long shot. So Keselowski, Elliott, Bowman. You've got Byron, Kyle Busch, and Briscoe. Look, the problem with taking Hamlin and Larson is only one of them wins, and you got a 50-50 shot. You get flipping the coin is what you're doing, and that's always hard to do. So sometimes, look, if Hamlin was going well, then to me it would be one of those races where I'd say, all right, this is one of those 3 times a year I'll take a 4-1 shot, but he's just not going well. So I can't do that.
I agree. I think he's going to have so much on his mind of needing to get the stage points and needing to get the good finish.
He doesn't have to win, really, if you think about it. Yeah.
He's focused on points and make sure that somebody else has problems and it's not him.
All right. So there you go. That's our NASCAR coverage. We are going to be next week. Is that Kansas next week?
That's correct.
1.5 mile. And then Talladega is not that far after that, right? That's the next race after that?
Right after that. And then we got another road course to close out that round. So it's a very similar situation to this round, except you're trading out the short track of Bristol for a 1.5 mile oval in Kansas. Otherwise, you've got a super speedway and a road course.
All right. And so we want to remind everybody, too, that our starting lineup show is going to be on Friday. So I love this because there's I don't have to worry about college football on Saturday. So this is the only night race of the playoffs, right?
It is.
Yeah.
One of the only night races of the year. Unfortunately, they got to bring them back.
I don't know what the deal is with that.
We need more. We need more.
Yep. Qualifying is going to be at 5:00 on Friday. So I should have a starting lineup report here on Prime Sports Network sometime around 7:00 on Friday night. And then you've got the Xfinity race, by the way, will be going on right around the time that I start my video, or I post my video right around that time. It's a 7:30 start for the Xfinity race on Friday night. So anyway, so there you go. So that's what's going on with NASCAR. Now, let me go ahead and switch things around here real quick as we turn our template here into a F1 looking deal. Where the hell is the thing here? Where is this? Okay, so I guess what we can do to start off with, well, actually, let me get this off here first. Let me get this playoff thing off. Okay. So as we start talking F1, another week goes by, another race goes by that Max Verstappen is like a no-show. So, but we also know that he has just such a big lead and all that kind of stuff. So even though he didn't win, it was still a good week for him, right? Because like he didn't have a disastrous week.
He didn't have a disastrous week. He picked up points, but most importantly, in the Drivers' Championship fight, Lando Norris, his closest competitor, had a really crappy weekend. In qualifying, Lando Norris was eliminated in the first round. He got caught out for whatever reason. And again, I blame the team. For whatever reason, he had to do his fast lap at the very last minute or a couple seconds of that first segment of qualifying. And unfortunately, some car ahead of him ended up bringing out a caution, so he couldn't improve his lap, and he was eliminated. So, big mistake there from McLaren and Mercedes and Norris in qualifying. So they weren't able to pull forward through the race. Max Verstappen wasn't good as predicted at Azerbaijan, and he came away with points though, even on a weekend where he wasn't good, and that was enough to be able to keep the gap over Lando Norris in the championship. So Verstappen on 313 points, Norris on 254. Again, same as we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks. I don't see much of a scenario for the remainder of the year where Max Verstappen does not walk away with the driver's title. It's just going to have to be complete disaster with multiple failures of complete DNFs for him for races, with McLaren and Lando Norris actually not shooting themselves in the foot or making mistakes and pulling forward. So I still think even, at the negative 230 there, that's still not bad for what is effectively a shoe-in at this point for the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah. And this week, he's never won here, correct?
He has never won at Singapore. So these last two tracks, Azerbaijan and Singapore, I've been saying for a while, these are the ones where you do not want to take Max Verstappen. This track in particular is even worse for him than Azerbaijan. I think Red Bull, based on some of the things that they've discovered and things that they've changed with the floor of their car, has started to come to terms with where it has gone astray and why Verstappen and Perez, quite frankly, have lost the edge that they had over the rest of the field. So they're starting to work on that, but it's not going to be enough to come this weekend at a place like Singapore where Verstappen has just never performed well. He's always had problems at this track. He has never won here. It's not going to change this weekend.
Nor should it. I mean, look, he knows at this point what he has to do to win, and on a track that he knows his history isn't all that good. Just stay out of trouble. That's all. Just be smart. Keep the car in one piece.
Just get some points. That's all he needs to do. The car and he are more than capable of doing that, even at this track, which he's not good at. So as long as he keeps doing that, regardless of what Lando Norris and McLaren do, the championship's going to be his, and that's all he needs to do to close out the season. This week, especially, is just get some points. Don't do anything heroic. Wait and move on to go to the races that come to the Western Hemisphere afterward, and then close out the season with another driver's title.
So there's the defending champ is 6-1, and then you've got Perez, who won in 2022, who's done nothing this year, is 35-1, and you got Lewis Hamilton is a two-time champ. Three-time champ. No, four-time champ, right?
At this track?
Yes. Yes, 4 times.
4, yes.
So he's 14-1. And by the way, who is Sebastian Vettel? What happened to that guy?
He retired. He was the dominant force for several years, also at Red Bull, winning races and championships. And went over to Ferrari, but ultimately retired a couple of years ago. Old okay. Age. Yes, he's probably in his low 30s.
Oh, that's old. Yeah. So anyway,
mid 30s.
The starting position. No drivers. The first race was in 2008. Fernando Alonso started 15th. Ever since then, nobody has won here past the 5th position, and only 2 drivers have won from outside the 2nd position.
Yeah, and that 5th position win was Lewis Hamilton. So again, you're looking at somebody that that's going to come from the first row that's going to win. Ferrari, if you think about Ferrari, so they were very good at Azerbaijan, had a chance to win, came down to a last lap battle. Piastri had the handle of the race, but Leclerc was pretty close and competitive throughout. But been saying it all along, Ferrari are fantastic on short runs. They can get the qualifying time. They can put their car in position to be able to manage the race. If things fall their direction during the race, they can win it. But it's up to the other teams to lose it. So McLaren keeps shooting themselves in the foot. If McLaren doesn't make mistakes, I think McLaren's got this win this week. Whether it's Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri, not exactly sure. You might want to go with the team bet on that one, but you're going to be giving up some points there. I think Ferrari is at 3-1 for Leclerc. Sainz maybe even a little at 6. Probably a little. Sainz is a little bit more reasonable, but Leclerc certainly is a little bit too expensive at those odds, considering that Ferrari hasn't proven that through a long run that they can manage the tires well enough to stay ahead of the McLarens, and therefore you're going to have Norris and Piastri that end up beating them. The ones, again, that I think are still at a discount are your Mercedes drivers, the George Russell and Lewis Hamiltons. Look at them there, 14 each. Why not go with both of them? Maybe even you just take them as a podium finisher. They didn't have the greatest Azerbaijan race, similar things in terms of upgrades where they are going and changing their floor, trying to get a handle on their car. But I think Mercedes is probably the best value on the board. From a favorite perspective this week, it's going to be either the McLaren drivers and Ferrari.
Yeah, Russell has not had a good go of it here in his career. He's been pretty bad on this track. But again, we talked about Hamilton. And even when he hadn't been winning recently, he still has a couple top fives in his last 3 races since his back-to-back wins in 17 and 18, which, again, were part of his 4 wins here. So, yeah, I think Hamilton seems like a no-brainer for sure. It is interesting, though, that when you take a look at those top drivers, you mentioned Leclerc, and he definitely looks to be the guy that really, see, in a way, you understand why his odds are where they are just based on history. That's all they are. But this year, like you said, that's different. I mean, you're trying to go into you take a look at 2 different ways of handicapping the race, and Leclerc has 2 poles, 2 runner-ups. He has led laps, even though it's only one time. He led 19 laps because the other 2, Norris and Piastri, only second time for Piastri. I think he finished 7th last year. Norris has never led a lap here. So they'll be doing something new for the first time. So I think that's what you're dealing with there. But like you said, I mean, you're just looking at Leclerc, is that even though maybe he has a little bit better history than those guys, you just don't believe that they can get it done.
Ferrari has not shown this entire year that in a race, that through the pit stop cycles, that their car can manage the tires any better than the McLarens or even the Red Bulls earlier in this season. So it's going to have to come down to, for Ferrari to win, it's going to have to come down to another McLaren mistake. Now, the issue is, and why you're getting good odds on Leclerc, is because of the history. But then also, we've been saying McLaren does make mistakes. They're not infallible. They just made one last week with Lando Norris with the first round qualifying. So again, it's going to be a McLaren day. McLaren's got the best car right now. The heir apparent would be Ferrari. But like you said, if you really want to differentiate your strategy and you really want to hedge, again, I would go with one of the McLarens. I think Leclerc's got a chance, but again, I think it's going to take a mistake from McLaren for Leclerc to get through to the win. I do think Hamilton, from a long shot perspective, is one that could potentially pull off a surprise and give you a bigger payout. And again, if you think back to earlier in the season when we were talking about Verstappen at -3 and -4, if you can get a winner at +2 with Lando Norris, you can hedge your bet with a Hamilton at 14 today. You might be making up your entire season just on this one single race here.
And so, are you surprised though that that Carlos, the defending champ, is actually double the price of his teammate?
I am a little bit, yeah, because Sainz has shown certain times this season to be the equal, if not better, of Leclerc. I think the reason why Sainz is starting to trail off is because it's getting more toward the end of the season. We know he's not with Ferrari next year. Last week, he was in contention to he had a podium finish in his hand, ended up colliding with Sergio Perez there on the last lap, and both of them finished all the way down the order. So I think Sainz, actually, if you're from a Ferrari standpoint, I think Leclerc's got the edge just based on his history at the track, but I think Sainz is pretty good as well. But yeah, from an individual driver's aspect, I'm not sure that there's a big enough difference between the two for me to say that Sainz should be double the odds. So perhaps if you think Ferrari is going to win, maybe you split your bets between Leclerc and Sainz, because you got maybe your hedge instead of Hamilton is Sainz there if you think that Ferrari is going to win because McLaren shoots himself in the foot again.
All right. Any other wagers at all? Let's see. The winning car.
Again, McLaren negative 120. Ferrari might be a good option there. Well, actually, no, it's not, because either of the drivers are 3 and 6. So why not go with the drivers there versus the team at a 2? If Sainz hits, then you make your money. You just hedge a little bit with Leclerc in there.
Yeah, I mean, if you do really like McLaren, like you were saying, just go with the team bet and get, it's almost even money. It's just not bad if that's the way that you go, and it pays off for you. So, all right. And then what's next for F1?
We got a couple week break before they end up coming over to the Western Hemisphere. So the first up, once they get to October 18th, once they come to the Western Hemisphere, is going to be COTA, United States and Texas.
Oh, so this is that long break we were talking about. So this is it until late October.
That is correct.
Vegas. All right.
Vegas closes out the Western Hemisphere. We got Mexico and Brazil in between Texas, and then we hit Las Vegas at a nice night race with a pretty cool track. Hopefully they have better organization this year for the fans, because last year was a little bit of a fiasco.
That's right. I was looking at NASCAR Vegas. So the NASCAR is going to be in Vegas almost around the same time, I guess. So you got. Oh, okay. So that's so actually, we're looking at, just to double check this. So it's Texas on the 20th, Mexico the 27th, and then Brazil on November 3rd.
That is correct.
All right. So there you go. After so we are. So we're at that point right now where we're not going to be talking about F1 on this show till late October.
About a month. Yep.
And again, the advice here is clearly, though, even though we don't like to give it a whole lot, but this is if you're ever going to invest in a sporting event where you got to give up 2-to-1 odds basically, or a little bit more than that. This is as good as that's going to get. I mean, this is, yeah. I mean, this seems like it's almost too easy.
Yeah, I think this is McLaren's race to lose. It's Verstappen's championship. You might as well start engraving the trophy now. Close to McLaren, certainly this weekend is going to be Ferrari. But if you're really looking for a good long shot, Lewis Hamilton at the 14-to-1 would be the best hedge that's out there.
All right, CJ, and again, we're going to have the link in the description when we post this video. So obviously, we're doing that. And you're watching the video, so just check at the link at the bottom of the screen. You could click there, and CJ will let you know what's going on with the RotoWire fantasy report for this race. And we'll talk to you later in October for more F1 talk. As far as NASCAR, of course, we're going to be back again next week with more NASCAR coverage as we go to another round in the playoffs. And there's a link in the description for the NASCAR show that we did, so you can check that out. And we'll be talking NASCAR solo for the next several weeks here on Mystery Caution. And, of course, you can check out Prime Sports Network as well, where we post most of our NASCAR videos. So that wraps it up. CJ, appreciate your time as always, and we'll be talking F1 with you in several weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
And we'll talk to everybody again real soon. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, question, anything like that. in the description, comment area here of the show. And we'll see everybody here talking F1 in a few weeks.